Today, prepare yourself to be astounded, disturbed, and completely mesmerized by the twisted world of circus freaks. These were real-life performers whose remarkable and often unnerving physical traits made them the headliners of the sideshow circuit. But behind the glittering lights and the crowd's cheers, many of these individuals lived lives marked by struggle, exploitation, and haunting secrets. So, grab a seat and hang on tight as we plunge into the shocking and spectacular realm of the most amazing and unbelievable circus freaks that actually existed. Number 15. Captain George Constantinos. Captain George Constantinos, often called the Tattooed Greek Prince or the Greek Albanian, was one of the most visually arresting circus performers of the late 19th century. Born on April 17, 1833, in Albania to ethnically Greek Christian parents, he claimed he'd been captured during a mining expedition in Tartary and tattooed over a 3-month span as punishment. His body was covered in 387 images, like exotic animals, geometric patterns, flowers, and foreign scripts, with only the soles of his feet and parts of his ears untouched. He later claimed a second tattooing session in Burma left him with a total of 388 figures. Speaking numerous languages and known for his eccentric appearance, he toured Europe and the US, signing a contract with P.T. Barnum in 1876. Constantinos often wore lavish clothing and jewelry off stage, and later became a U.S. citizen. Despite failing eyesight, he continued touring well into the 1880s, vanishing from public record after 1894 following a final passport request. Number 14. Susie. Susie, famously known as the elephant skin girl, had a rare genetic condition called ichthyosis, which caused her skin to become thick, dry, and cracked, resembling elephant hide. As a child, she faced constant bullying and social exclusion due to her appearance. In the late 1920s, she turned to the sideshow world, where she finally found acceptance. Audiences were fascinated by her deeply textured skin, and she became a sought-after attraction. Despite her popularity, Susie was reserved and avoided discussing her condition off stage. She kept to herself, though her performances consistently drew crowds intrigued by her appearance. Her career spanned decades, allowing her to travel across the U.S. and become a staple in American sideshows. Eventually, she settled in New York and continued performing well into the 1960s, even as interest in sideshows waned. Though she made a name for herself, Susie remained intensely private, using her act to create a space where she could be respected, not pitied. Number 13. Chane Hultgren. Chane Hultgren, professionally known as the Space Cowboy, is a modern-day daredevil who redefined the freak show tradition for a new century. An Australian performer and co-founder of the Happy Sideshow, he toured globally with acts like sword swallowing, chainsaw juggling, blindfolded arrow catching, and even channeling electricity through his body with a Tesla coil. The original troupe also featured Shep Huntley, Tiger Lil, and Captain Frodo, performers who helped resurrect circus oddities as modern spectacle. Hultgren went on to create several theatrical freak shows, such as Mutant Barnyard, Sideshow Wonderland, The Royal Family of Strange People, and Deja Voodoo. His shows featured both natural-born and self-made freaks, including Matt Fraser, Iman, Gary Stretch, and Jody Amji. He holds multiple Guinness World Records, including the longest lightning bolt conducted through a human body. In recent years, Hultgren has explored augmented reality painting, presenting his work at top art fairs across Australia and New Zealand. His career merges endurance, creativity, and spectacle. Number 12. Robert Huddleston. Robert Huddleston, often called Pony Boy, was born with a severe spinal condition that caused his back to curve drastically, forcing him to move on all fours. His unusual locomotion made him a prominent figure in the sideshow world, where he captivated audiences for years. Before joining the circus, Robert worked as a logger, using his strength and agility to perform demanding labor despite his condition. His background gave him grit and resilience, traits that later defined his stage persona. Once in the circus, he became known as the Pony Man due to the way he walked like a four-legged animal. His act showcased both his natural movement and surprising strength, often performing feats that defied expectations. Audiences were drawn to his grace and physical control. Beyond the spotlight, Robert was admired for his upbeat personality and strong work ethic. His story remains one of resilience and strength. Number 11. Martin Lorello. Martin, aka the Human Owl, was a performer who became famous for his highly unusual and unsettling ability. Born in the early 20th century, Lorello possessed an extraordinary physical trait. He could rotate his head almost 180 degrees, mimicking the motion of an owl. While he wasn't a trained contortionist, this specific skill became the signature of his act. His performance usually centered around turning his neck to extreme angles, a feat that left spectators both amazed and uneasy. This was not due to a medical disorder, but a skill he practiced and refined. The average human spine cannot rotate that far without injury, but Lorello's performance appeared nearly supernatural. His act gained the most attention during the 1920s and 1930s, when sideshows were at their peak. He performed with P.T. Barnum's Circus and other traveling shows, appearing regularly alongside other human curiosities featured during that strange and theatrical era. Number 10. Albert Alberta Karras. Albert Alberta Karras, also known on stage as Adam and Eve, was a unique figure in early 20th century sideshow history. Identified as intersex or a female impersonator named Harry Caro, Karras performed throughout the 1920s in vaudeville shows, dime museums, and traveling freak exhibitions. They were featured in pamphlets and promotional materials, which often included photos of Karras presenting both masculine and feminine traits, sometimes appearing split vertically as both a man and a woman. Karras toured with sideshow promoter Bobby Reynolds and performed at major venues such as Hubert's Museum in Times Square and on the Lowe's Theater circuit. One surviving pamphlet measured 11 by 17 inches, folded to 8.5 by 11 inches, showing images of Albert Alberta and a personal biography. While their condition and background were often sensationalized, Karras stood out as a striking performer during a time when gender ambiguity was exploited for entertainment. Today, you won't find anything about this performer. Number 9. Annie Jones. Annie Jones, famously dubbed the Bearded Woman, was born in 1865 and likely had hirsutism, a condition that caused her to grow a full beard by early childhood. At age 9, her family entered her into show business. She joined P.T. Barnum's Greatest Show on Earth, becoming one of its top earners. Barnum marketed her as an exceptional marvel, and audiences were captivated. Annie embraced her role, and as she matured, her performances evolved. Touring extensively, she became a major figure in the sideshow world. However, off-stage, she endured constant judgment and invasive curiosity. The emotional and physical toll weighed heavily on her. Despite her earnings, she struggled to be seen beyond her appearance. Annie passed away from tuberculosis in 1902 at just 37, after spending nearly her entire life in the spotlight. Her death marked the end of an era where performers with rare conditions were often reduced to curiosities. Number 8. Chang and Eng Bunker. Chang and Eng Bunker, born in 1811 in Siam, now Thailand, were the original Siamese twins, a term coined due to their fame. The brothers were conjoined at the chest by a strip of tissue and shared a liver, though they had separate hearts, lungs, and other organs. Despite their connection, they lived remarkably independent lives, each with a distinct personality. Discovered by a British merchant in 1824, they soon began touring internationally as a sideshow act. They were billed as the Siamese twins, and their synchronized movement fascinated spectators. Their performances showcased their ability to function independently despite being physically joined. After years on the road, they settled in North Carolina in 1839, choosing a quieter life. They both married sisters, Adelaide and Sarah Yates, and had large families. Chang fathered 10 children and Eng 11. They became farmers and lived privately, balancing past fame with family life. Their story remains one of the most iconic in conjoined twin history. Number 7. Julia Pastrana. Julia Pastrana, often called the Ape Woman, was born in 1834 in Mexico with a rare disorder known as hypertrichosis, which caused her entire body to be covered in thick, dark hair. She also suffered from gingival hyperplasia, which caused her gums to protrude, giving her a uniquely striking appearance. These conditions led to her being displayed as a freak in circuses and sideshows, often labeled as part human, part animal. Despite how she was marketed, Julia Pastrana was a talented performer. She sang, danced, and appeared on prestigious stages across the United States and Europe. Her shows were promoted as rare exhibitions of human oddity. Yet beyond the spotlight, her life was riddled with exploitation. She married her manager, Theodore Lent, who capitalized on her condition for profit. In 1860, Julia gave birth to a child who shared her condition, and both died shortly after. Her embalmed body was exhibited posthumously for decades. It wasn't until 1972 that her remains were returned to Mexico for burial. Number 6. Larger than life. Fannie Mills, known as the Ohio Bigfoot Girl, captivated 19th century audiences with her striking physical contrast. While her upper body looked typical, her legs and feet were abnormally large, caused by what is now called Milroy's disease. Born in England around 1860, she moved with her family to Ohio as a child. Her feet reportedly measured nearly 19 inches long and 7 inches wide, making her a standout figure in dime museums, popular venues at the time for displaying human oddities. These shows, fueled by public fascination and Barnum's earlier museum success, made Fanny a headliner. Promoters even fabricated claims that her father would pay a large dowry to any man who married her, an obvious ploy to draw more attention. She reportedly earned up to $4,000 per week. Despite the crude spectacle surrounding her, Fanny managed to create a name for herself. All right, guys, now let's move to Number 5. A healthy stretch. Felix Werle, born in Mount Ida, Wisconsin, stunned people not with makeup or illusion, but with biology. He had an extraordinary talent. His skin could stretch to bizarre lengths, and his joints bent far beyond the norm. What looked like a parlor trick was actually a result of what we now recognize as Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a connective tissue disorder that makes skin unusually elastic and joints extremely flexible. Realizing this wasn't something everyone could do, Felix leaned into it. He hit the sideshow circuit, performing jaw-dropping feats like pulling folds of skin across his body and bending his fingers backward without injury. He joined major acts, including the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, and quickly earned attention as the Human Rubber Man. Although another performer, James Morris, later competed for the same title, Felix held his own. He didn't just embrace his condition, he weaponized it. Instead of hiding what made him different, he used it to build a career and leave a lasting impression. Number 4. The Kitten of Minnesota. Alice Elizabeth Dougherty, affectionately known as the Minnesota Woolly Girl, was born in 1887 with a condition called hypertrichosis lanuginosa. This meant her body was covered in soft, silky, light-colored hair, almost 2 inches long. Her parents were stunned at birth, but soon realized that Alice's appearance could draw public attention. By age 2, she was already featured in local sideshows, where her rare condition fascinated audiences. She quickly became a Midwest sensation, touring regionally while being promoted as a human curiosity. Though some compared her to a kitten because of her playful personality and soft hair, Alice herself wasn't particularly enamored with fame. Unlike other performers whose careers were driven by agents or promoters, Alice stayed close to home and under her family's management. Despite offers to tour further and profit more, she retired from the spotlight by age 28. While others were exploited for decades, Alice left the stage on her own terms, quietly, gracefully, and entirely by choice. Number 3. The upper half. Johnny Eck, famously known as the half-boy, was born in 1911 with a rare condition called sacral agenesis. This meant his lower body never fully formed, but instead of being sidelined by it, Johnny turned it into his strength. With a completely functional upper body and unmatched determination, he navigated life using only his hands. He performed impressive feats, walking on his arms, doing acrobatics, and even riding skateboards, all while wowing audiences. Starting young, he entered the sideshow world and gained attention fast. His biggest break came when he appeared in the 1932 film Freaks, where he played a memorable role alongside other famous performers. But Johnny's life wasn't limited to the stage. He loved birds, played musical instruments, and even drove a custom-built car. He refused to let his condition dictate his limits. Instead, he embraced it and lived life fully. For Johnny Eck, being half didn't mean incomplete. It meant making the most of what you have and never backing down. Number 2, the thinner star. Even among sideshow performers, Isaac stood out. Born in the late 1830s in Massachusetts, he measured just 37 inches in height and had notably short limbs, creating a striking appearance. While experts believed he had some form of dwarfism, no formal diagnosis was ever given. His skeletal frame earned him the nickname, the living skeleton, and he quickly became a fixture in the American sideshow scene. He traveled with various circuses, including P.T. Barnum's renowned American Museum. But he wasn't just an exhibit. He was a talented musician and entertainer, captivating audiences with more than just his look. His performances extended beyond U.S. borders, gaining attention across Europe. Though he hoped to retire, financial hardship kept pulling him back to the stage. There were few roles for someone with his build, and show business remained his only source of income. Isaac's story reflects a time when uniqueness wasn't celebrated, but sold, and sometimes the only way forward was through the spotlight. Number 1. Prince Randian's missing limbs. Manitoba, the human caterpillar, the living torso. These were all names given to Prince Randian, a performer who made his mark in early 20th century sideshows. Born in British Guiana with tetra amelia syndrome, he had no arms or legs. But instead of fading into obscurity, he became a star attraction with his unmatched determination. P.T. Barnum reportedly brought him to the U.S. in 1889, where he performed for over 4 decades. He was featured in the 1932 film Freaks, famously rolling and lighting a cigarette using only his lips. Wearing a tailored wool bodysuit, he moved across the stage by wriggling his torso, earning his nickname, the human caterpillar. But he did more than that. He could paint, write, and even shave himself. People gathered not just to stare, but to witness how someone with no limbs could do what others couldn't imagine. His act was a spectacle, yes, but behind it was a man who proved independence didn't require arms or legs, only resolve. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you soon in the next one.